welcome everybody to another episode of Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate. I'm your host, Brandon, and we're here on a Tuesday today with a special journey segment drop. I'm really excited to hear this experience, and we really wanted to get it out right away, so we're going to drop it on a Tuesday this week. Me and Brandon met over Instagram. I reached out to him asking if he would share his experience after seeing some different things that he had posted. And I think he has a really powerful story that he's going to share with us today and inspire hope and strength in other people that are listening. And, I was telling him it's always good to have another guy share their experience because sometimes, as men, we don't always talk about our mental health issues or, those moments where maybe, we're expected to be strong or feel strong and we don't always feel that way. So I'm really excited to have Brandon from New York here today. So Brandon, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Brandon. Like mine.
Yeah.
Like mine.
And again, man, I appreciate you coming on. And, like I said, I'm really excited to hear your story. It's the first time I get to hear it and experience it as well. And so I just wanted to thank you again for taking the time to do this.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Awesome. So just kind of, going into your story, your experience a little bit, what's a little bit of background on you? Where do you kind of come from? How did you grow up? Were there any kind of early signs or thoughts that kind of, where that mental health stuff started?
So, although my mental health stuff really kind of kicked off during the pandemic, I always thought it was kind of deep rooted because as a kid, I wasn't always the most well liked. I wasn't very popular, didn't have a lot of friends. Was kind of that kid that always got picked last for stuff, was, not included in things, was kind of made fun of, laughed at. So over the years of just trying to, get more accepted, I would do a lot of things to try to seek acceptance from people. And I really, because of that, I always had a deep rooted thought and I cared a lot about what people thought of me. So really where I think a lot of my mental health stuff came to was just my deep rooted, thought that everybody needed to approve me. I just really needed to seek acceptance. So I think that's where a lot of it came from.
Yeah. And you were saying that you would do stuff to seek approval or to get that acceptance. Could you just maybe give a couple examples or an example of like that, what that looked like for you, of how you would try to gain that acceptance or that approval from, people around you?
Just, really trying to act the way that I thought people wanted me to act and be the way that I thought people wanted me to be rather than just being myself.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. Just when I was younger, I felt I had those issues as well of feeling like I needed to be approved and wasn't really confident in myself. Did you have any were there any deeper thoughts back then? Did you realize, did you not feel right? Was something did you feel like something was wrong, or was it just that kind of approval aspect of it that you were feeling?
At that stage, it was just more seeking approval. Never had negative thoughts, anything among that nature. It was just more later down the line, once the pandemic hit, that's when really everything kind of built up and it all hit the fan. If you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that was a really tough moment for a lot of people in that isolation and everything. So, kind of walk us through that. Leading into the pandemic, where was your life at? What did that look like for you leading into everything shutting down and kind of ending at that time?
So it all it was the previous year leading into the pandemic that really kind of brewed that little cocktail of just a really untasteful cocktail, we'll call it. So I tried my hand at a career change. I was working as a manager, I guess a salary position as a manager for a different company, and I did really well at it, but I was unhappy. Didn't like what I was doing, didn't like doing the 9 to 5, how I felt, or how my life was going. And I've always had a passion for health and fitness because I've had a lot of changes as a result of health and fitness, and I've changed my life. So I tried my hand at coaching, and I had been doing CrossFit at the time for about 5 years at that point. So I decided at that point that I was going to go get my level one, which was the entry level coaching certification at the time. So I got my level one, entered a mentorship to start coaching at the original gym that I was at. So everything seemed to be going pretty good. I entered a mentorship, and things took a while for me to be able to earn my spot into coaching classes and working with people, because where I was at, they didn't want to take me in right away. And of course, they wanted me to enter a full mentorship, which I understood. Worked my way towards it. It took me nearly a year to get to the point where I was finally allowed to coach in a setting and get paid to do what I was doing. And I had gotten about 2 weeks into doing that, where I was finally working the job that I wanted, finally getting to help people. And I finally found that sense of fulfillment that I'd been missing in my life, which was helping other people. And then the announcement happened. That
It kind
announcement,
of,
that announcement,
yeah,
I think, in New York, Cuomo was the governor at the time. Don't know what he's doing now. That's irrelevant to the topic. But the big announcement happening that by 8 p.m., certain businesses would have to be shut down indefinitely. And one of those was pretty much all gyms. So we were deemed non essential. So guess who lost his job? Just like that. Things were going great. And then all of a sudden, one day, life just kind of got taken from me. It was really hard
yeah,
to adjust to
yeah.
that.
I wanna, yeah, and I really understand that because I was kind of in the same realm and field of how of working with people. But I want to go back a little bit to just like your grind to get to something you're really passionate about. You know, you talk about health and fitness and working with people in that aspect. When you finally got that moment, you know, right before the lockdown happened, and you finally, you know, were starting to realize that dream of yours that was, you know, was coming true. Where were you at emotionally with that and mentally with that? Like, can you just explain? Probably, I would imagine joyful, but could you explain just a little bit of like how good that felt after grinding like that to get to that point?
It felt really, really good, even though I was in the starting stages, because although I wasn't at a point where I was making as much money as I did in my, we'll call it corporate job. Um, there was that sense of fulfillment that I knew I was getting to help other people, and I was getting to do something I enjoyed. So getting to do something I enjoyed every day, showing up to a place where it didn't feel like work what I was doing, but it felt like a passion project. Like it didn't matter that I was making less money, it just mattered that I was happier. So I really just woke up every day wanting to get up. It wasn't like a dread to get up. It wasn't like, oh, it's Monday, so all of a sudden got to go back to work. Oh, screw this. Like it wasn't like that. It was more, wow, Sunday I was off yesterday, I get to go in today. And that's where I was at. And that's how I kind of knew this was what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah, I love that. I love hearing that. Just because I've always in trying to do things that I've really enjoyed because you do get that sense of fulfillment. It doesn't always feel like work. You just still might have some tough days, but it you get that fulfillment, that happiness to like, oh, I get to go do something I enjoy today. So I wanted you to share that because I think that's a really special thing that sometimes we lose sight of too, in life. And so kind of going to that announcement, you know, announcement of it shutting down. I remember exactly what I was doing, kind of where I was. And like I said, I worked in schools and I coached soccer. So right away, my stuff was done as well. So I get that sense of feeling for you. But what was that initial reaction for you? What was that initial thought process or emotional response that you had when that first came out?
So I was kind of 50-50. 50% of me was like, crap, this is going to be a long term thing. We're going to be cooped up at home, social isolation. That's where 50% of me was at. And then 50% of me, I think, was in denial, because I didn't want to believe it was true after everything that I just worked towards. So I kept telling myself it's only going to be a couple weeks. It's only going to be a couple weeks, and then you're going to go back and you're going to coach, and things are going to be great. life is going to be normal. So that's where I was at 50-50, and I kept convincing myself that side of denial to try to get myself through it. And after a few weeks, it started to set in that this was not changing anytime soon. So that's where I think everything that had built up in my life to that point was starting to crumble. And it was starting to set in to me like crap, like you got nothing right now. So after those few weeks, that's where things started like settling in. I started to realize, dude, you just lost everything you worked so hard for. You are not going to get to do your passion. You're not going to get to do anything in life. You're not going to get to interact with people. It's all over. And the negative thoughts started happening at that point, which
Yeah.
affected my sleep, which affected the way I ate. There was other things that played into that as well, because it wasn't just as simple as this pandemic happened, I was depressed, wanted to kill myself, all that. There was a lot more to, there was like so many layers. It was like peeling an onion.
Yeah, and I'm really empathetic to that when that realization starts to hit and you start realizing like, oh crap, what am I going to do right now? Because that's where it was. It took a couple weeks for me as well, and so I can relate to that a lot. And just kind of when that started to hit for you, and you started to that really started to sink in. How did that affect your day during lockdown? Did it become a little bit less active? How did it affect your day or your mentality as like we started to get weeks or even a month into that process of realizing we're not doing much right now in life?
So initially it didn't affect me as far as exercise. In the beginning, nothing really changed about how I was training. I fortunately had equipment at home, so I was able to keep doing my CrossFit thing and following programming, and I made it work. I had my best friend who came over to my house every day, and we would take a barbell with like 200 and something pounds of weight. We would bring a plyo box, dumbbells, kettlebells. We would either go out in my front yard or we would drive to the track or the local park, and we would carry all that stuff up. So, like, sometimes like a quarter mile carry it up to the track from our car to get in and do our workout. So we found a way to stay active, and I think that helped me a little bit in the beginning. But what ultimately kind of made things go in the opposite direction was the eating disorder, which kind of played in to my whole mental health thing getting worse.
Can you go into that just a little bit more of what that eating disorder was like for you and how that looked for you personally?
Yeah, so how it kind of started, and I like to give people the benefit of the doubt because I truly don't believe that people just intentionally like go in trying to affect people in a negative way. But unfortunately, the way I was being communicated with by certain people wasn't great, right? So whether it was ill intent or not, kind of set me off into that disordered eating. And what happened was, because I was so determined to help people in a coaching space, I felt it was my duty once the pandemic happened to start making a bigger effort on my social media pages. And I had an old one at the time before the current one that I had now, and I would video my workouts every day. I would post what I was doing. I would put educational content out there, and I would put nutrition content out there as well, like sharing what I was eating, how to eat better, things among that nature. I shared a story the one day of a pre-workout snack that I had made for myself. I think it was like Kodiak cakes with like a scoop of like Dymatized fruity pebble protein powder, like one of those flavored ones that they have there. Not sure if you're familiar with either brands. Shared this protein pancake recipe I made and shared it with people. Hey, if you need an interesting way to get some protein in, fuel yourself for your workout, give this a try. Listed the ingredients, put it on my story. This is where things kind of got a little interesting. The owner of the gym that I used to be at replied to the story and wrote, just without any context, Fruity Pebbles protein powder, goodbye health, dot, dot, dot. So I'm not sure if that was really ill intent or if it was a joke or whatever, because in the CrossFit space, it's a little more like the nutrition way of thinking is like all natural foods, no like unnatural stuff. So I'm not sure if it was like an opinion based thing or if it was like an ill intent message, but it didn't feel good to read something like that because there was no context with it. And when there's no context with stuff, it makes you kind of overthink. I'm not sure if you dealt with that in the past before. Me personally, when people tell me things with no context and I find their opinion of importance, I start to race in my mind. And that was the thing that set me off into an eating disorder. Because once that happened, I told myself, this is the owner of my gym, the person that has it in his control if I continue to do coaching or not, or if I lose my dream. And he thinks I'm eating unhealthy, and I'm an aspiring coach, and I can't be viewed as somebody who's eating unhealthy. So, as a result of that, I I overhauled the way I was eating completely, took a 180, and not in a good way. What it basically
Yeah.
turned into that was very restrictive eating, a poor relationship with food. I wouldn't eat any carbohydrates of any sort. I would only eat like chicken. I would only eat like chicken breast or like really lean meats with like vegetables, no fruits, no rice, no potatoes, no anything, right? Like I didn't eat anything else because anything other than those two things I automatically deemed people would view it as bad. So I just stopped eating everything basically. And just doing that all the time and having the negative mindset around food between at that time it was like a month and a half into the pandemic that happened. By the time that we got to the point where we were able to go back into gyms, which I think was like September or October, I at that point had lost about 30 pounds almost. So I might not be accurate there. Hold on. 188. No, not 30 pounds, like 22, 23 pounds. I went from 188 at the time to 167, all in the matter of maybe a few months. And I'll have to send you a pic of it at some point after we finish filming this. But I have a picture of me at the very height of the lower end of that body weight in my eating disorder. And it doesn't look pretty if you look at pictures of me now. I look like a skeleton, essentially, compared to what I do now. So,
Yeah, and you know, I can relate a lot to the overthinking thing. I think I still do that at times. I try to be better about it, but like you said, when somebody says something, especially somebody that is important to you, or you view their opinion highly, and they say something or text something or post or comment something, and you don't get a whole lot of context, then your mind can take that a million different places. So I understand that a lot. And kind of like you being into that health and fitness world, and how when you start to lose that positive relationship with food and how you view it, I'm sure that's a big aspect of that health world. Is that right? Like just that relationship and how you approach that.
oh yeah, 100%. If you don't have a good relationship with food, it ultimately leads, in most cases, to disordered eating. And that's hopefully I'm speaking within my realm of stuff, like within my realm of practice, because I know like the further and further you get into that, it's more like dietitian realm. But having a good relationship with food is like crucial to being successful with your nutrition journey and your lifestyle journey, from my experience. So reframing to, I'm going to eat this way because I know it's going to yield me to get to what I want, rather than I'm not going to eat this because it's not good for me, or I'm not going to eat this because it's toxic, or I'm not going to eat this because people are going to think it's unhealthy. Just reframing that mindset is huge to developing a good relationship with food.
Oh, I love that. I think that's a really good tip right there, and something I probably need to hear as well. The reframing and how you view that. I appreciate you sharing that. And then the other aspect, just kind of about this point in your life and what you're going through, I want to ask you about. Did losing all that weight, or having that change in appearance or body type, did you have body image issues that went with that? Did you see yourself differently than, what you probably actually looked like? And how did that affect you mentally?
Oh, all of it affected each other. I'm going to unpack big here because I still have body image issues. Like, I'm probably sitting here, and a lot of people look at me like and say all the time how muscular I am, how fit I am. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I just see a fat person. So sometimes I see a fat, fluffy guy who's out of shape. So even now, I sometimes get a little bit of body dysmorphia. But back then, as I was continuing to gradually lose that weight over those few months, no matter what I saw in the mirror or on a video camera when I was filming a workout, I always saw this out of shape, unfit guy who didn't know what he was talking about, who didn't deserve to be a coach, who didn't deserve to have any quality of life. Those were the thoughts I kind of told myself every single day as this was happening. I didn't deserve this. I didn't deserve that. I didn't deserve to step in the same shoes as these fellow coaches that I wanted to be joining. And because of all that, and just this continual, like me almost gradually starving myself, because at the time I wasn't tracking calories, but I would imagine I probably cut down my intake significantly to have lost that much weight in a few months. So combining that with this obsessive need to train multiple hours a day now, because it's the pandemic and I needed the escape, I was doing probably 2 to 3 times the amount of training I was doing before, and I was doing obsessive amounts of cardio every day. So combining all that stuff together, like I think that stuff led me to having a more negative view because I was so overworked, so tired, so depleted of nutrients, and that affected my mindset towards things. So eventually, what this was doing to me was affecting my sleep so negatively to the point that I couldn't even sleep in the same bed as my wife for months. Like I would try to every night, go to bed, couldn't sleep, rolling around, telling myself all these negative thoughts, couldn't relax, couldn't have my mind stop racing. So I would just wait until she fell asleep every single night. And once I knew she was asleep, I would quietly leave the room, go downstairs, lay down in isolation on the couch in my living room, and just basically let my mind race down there and do the same exact thing that I was doing upstairs, just being alone. Because when I was struggling with the height of my mental health issues, I only wanted to be alone. I didn't want to be around people because I felt so alone. So it felt like a safety net to go downstairs and to be able to just get away. And I would just let my mind race till sometimes 4, 5, 6 in the morning until I finally fell asleep. And I would sleep for a short amount of time. And when she woke up for the day and noticed I was down there, she would wake me up. So I was getting between like 2, 3 hours of sleep a day, maybe. It was crap quality, and that led to a trickle effect because everything I was doing during the day and everything I was doing with my mind up here, combined with not getting enough sleep, not eating correctly, continually losing weight, it almost felt like being on a roller coaster 24/7. And that roller coaster didn't stop and it was going way too fast. That's what I felt like. Like there was no relaxing. My mind was constantly racing. And eventually it got very tiring. It got very exhausting mentally to essentially the point where my suicidal thoughts started to begin.
Yeah, and I can't say how much I appreciate the vulnerability and what you just shared with the body image issues, and feeling that loneliness, even if you were next to your wife, or feeling that lonely, so then you would go isolate. Um, I those feelings are really powerful and really scary, I think, at the same time. And so I just wanted to ask you before we kept kind of going into that. Did you talk to your wife about what was going on, or anybody about what was going on when you were going through this, or was a lot of that kept inside?
A lot of it was kept inside. I tried to communicate things with other people in my own way in the beginning, but I was afraid of letting people know I had a mental health issue going on. So really, I tried to just make it seem like it was a very minor thing that I just needed to talk to people about, but every time I would bring it up to my best friend who came over every day, or my coaching mentor at the time, who I've kept a great relationship with, by the way, and I work alongside with right now. No matter who I told, they just didn't get it, man. They didn't get it. Like it was either always like you can't be complaining about life, or life isn't that bad. This is not worth getting upset about, or fill in the blank. Like
Yeah,
nobody seemed to get it, and I don't blame them, because we as men, we're cultured already to not be allowed to have these issues. If you think of it, the way things are painted out, and it's really sad that it's painted out this way. And this is not speaking ill on women either, but women can have any mental health issue in the world, and people take it seriously right away. They don't bat an eye at it. It's automatically they get more sympathy and empathy from people for having mental health concerns, which they should. People need attention with that. But when a man has a mental health issue, it's stop complaining. You're being a coward. You're being a pussy. Like, fill in the blank. We're not allowed to have these issues, because if we do have these issues, we're not men. We lose our masculinity, or we're just cowards of human beings. And because of that, at least for me, I didn't tell people what was going on with me, because I didn't want to be viewed that way. And I honestly, after a while, I just didn't think I thought it was a waste of time, because if I started telling people about how I was feeling, what's the point if nobody's going to listen?
yeah, and I agree with everything you just said, and how society views those problems, or how we can internalize those as men. And I think that's why I was really appreciate your vulnerability earlier, because I think when it comes to like body issues and disordered eating, that's even harder, I think, for a guy to say. I know, like, for me, I was a soccer player growing up, and I always felt like the fat kid on my team, and I was just a little bit bigger than everybody on my team, but I like just always felt less than, or like I wasn't good enough because I was a little bit bigger than everybody else. And so I think sharing that like you just did is a really powerful message, that those feelings happen, and that's okay, as long as we find those healthy ways to deal with them. So I really appreciate you kind of going into that a little bit more. So kind of going into those darkest moments for you, those dark moments before things started to get a little bit better. What did that quote unquote rock bottom biggest challenge look like, and how did you handle that, or end up getting through it?
Dude, I didn't have a plan whatsoever. I had these thoughts, like, basically every day. Like, I don't know how I want to do it, but I know I'd be happier dead right now. That's what I felt every day. I felt that if I died, nobody would even care. They might cry for a day or two, but they would not care after that. Felt like nobody would miss me, and I felt like I was better off if, oh man, um, if like, if I wasn't around. So I just lived with those thoughts every day. I felt alone because I wasn't telling anybody about it, and really, more than anything else, it resulted in me kind of lashing out at the people that I love most and that love me most. So, like, nobody understood because I wasn't telling them, but I was very snippy with my wife all the time. I was very snippy with my best friend who came over every day. The people that I was interacting with from the gym before the lockdown happened, when they tried to talk to me, it was just very standoffish, was very minimal in my conversations. I would say as little as possible. My parents, they didn't know a single thing what was going on with me, and I would just I went from talking to them like multiple times a week to like not at all. And that's really kind of how I dealt with it. And this is a negative thing that I've always kind of done, I guess. But when I'm very, very stressed out, even like now and stuff, the way I kind of deal with things is I just tend to shut people out because I don't like when I'm super stressed or I'm having like mental health problems even now or when things like kind of start to resurface here and then, I find it's easier just to not like put my burden on everybody else.
Yeah, and I there's a lot of what you're saying that I can relate to a lot. I tend to isolate too when I go through some stuff now, even like as I have healthier ways to deal with my issues and healthier ways and tools to keep moving forward. There's still those times where they creep up where it's just isolating. I almost feel like seems easier. Like you said, I don't always feel like I want to burden other people with that. And so I think you worded that really well. Um, yeah, I mean, I just a lot of empathy, having those thoughts and keeping them into yourself. Because that's a really hard thing to do, and it's a really hard thing to get past and get through. Um, when you're not able to share it or not able to ask for help. So, I mean, were you like, I guess in that moment, was this the moment where things kind of started to turn around for you, or did it, extend a little bit further or get better and then get worse, or like kind of how did it continue to progress from starting to have those thoughts and those feelings of wanting to be gone?
So really, those same thoughts just kind of persisted every single day until the lockdown almost ended. Things started to turn around for the better towards the very end of the actual lockdown because we had found out that we were expecting our first child. And this was after another hard culmination. We had been trying since before the pandemic. We had been trying for almost a year at this point, and we were unable to successfully, get my wife pregnant. So that way we would have our first child, and that was leading to some tension as it was. And as that started to happen while my mental health issues were happening, it kind of led to things declining even worse for me as that was happening because not only am I too much of a failure to become a coach or to influence other people or to make an impact on other people's lives, I'm not even good enough to have a damn kid. Like that's how I felt. So it's like now I'm a failure in all these other areas, and now I'm a failure and I'm failuring at home too. So with all that happening, that was just like another reason like, hey, I'll be better off dead. She could find a man who can get her pregnant and get her a kid and make her happy. So like all these thoughts were going in my head with all that. But then when we finally found out that we were going to be having our first child, like things started to lighten up for me. I came home from work because at this point I was working a job so that way I could continue to pay the bills because I didn't have the coaching. Came home at night. I think I came home at like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and my wife had gifts for me, and I thought it was like a little weird because my birthday was going to be in like a week, and she made it sound like it was going to be an early birthday present. So I sat down, I opened the gifts, I questioned why like everything was like pink and blue, and it just didn't click in my head. And she had got it on video, and I started opening like all these bags and stuff, and then there was just a bunch of positive pregnancy tests like right on our coffee table, and I was in disbelief. Like there was like 4 or 5 of them, like undeniable proof that this was real, and I was in shock. And immediately, all those negative thoughts that I was having, they just went away because I realized, dude, you're gonna be a dad, and life started to change from there. It didn't get better like 100%. It's not like one day I wanted to die and now I'm having a kid and all of a sudden forget my suicidal thoughts. They're gone, right? That only in movies would something like that happen. Definitely that was not the case, but things started to get better at that point because I realized I critically thought that night as I started to go to sleep. And ironically, that was the first night in like months that I was able to go to sleep without a problem. Like, I had just, like, took time to myself to think before bed, and I realized, dude, you're gonna be a father. Now, all these suicidal thoughts you're having in your head right now, it's selfish, and you need to stop having them because this is bigger than yourself now. You're about to have either a son or daughter that's going to be coming like sometime next year, and you need to recover. You need to heal yourself for your son or daughter, whatever the case. Because at the time I didn't know. Like, you have to heal yourself for your family because you need to be there and present. You don't need to not be around when all this happens. So that's where like my journey to recovery was starting to begin. I didn't get out of the eating disorder yet, but I was at least in a right frame of mind to start focusing on sleeping better again, focusing on having more positive thoughts again. And that's where I kind of rode from like July until November. So really nothing had changed at that point other than I was sleeping better at this point and I was at least in a better frame of mind. And
Yeah, I
now
was
only
just gonna say
5
I love that. I love that story of you finding out that you're gonna be a dad. I love that. I know that's such a magical moment, so I appreciate you sharing that. That moment of life changing news, right?
Absolutely. Honestly, that's where I made a couple posts about it, but that moment is the day I believe that now what I found out was my daughter, that was our first kid, was a girl. She saved my life, and that's why I refer to her as saving my life. Because that moment was it. That was the moment where I decided I was gonna choose to stay. Um from there, right? July, this is like mid July at this point, to now November. This was the wake up call for me. Like, I was back in the gym now because the pandemic was ended to a point where you could at least go to the gym. You still had to wear masks and all this crazy stuff, but we were at least able to go back to the gym. A picture of me surfaced because I had either taken a video or somebody had taken a picture of me lifting, and it's the one that I'll occasionally post on my page and videos because I just think it's so powerful. All you see is a picture of me, super skinny, super frail, wearing a mask, and I'm holding a barbell overhead like this, and all you can see is my ribs. All you can see is my ribs. Not in a good way either. It's not like I'm chiseled with a six pack or like muscles or anything like that. I'm just this really scrawny, rib cage guy that looks like he's sick and frail and pale and looking like shit. And I saw that picture and I looked at myself. I was like, is this really what I became after the pandemic? This is really what I became. I went from pretty much having the whole world in the palm of my hands. I was happy, I was healthy, and I went to this. And that was like my wake up call, like, dude, where did we go wrong here? How did this happen? And that's where I quickly audited the fact, like, dude, your mindset around food made you think that all you were able to eat were these like few things, and you were only eating this stuff out of fear that people were going to think you were unhealthy if you, God forbid, ate beef, or God forbid, ate bread, or rice, or potatoes, or butter, or oil, or anything like that. You restricted yourself so much that you only ate this stuff. You in the grocery store, your pregnant wife sent you out to go get you snacks because she was having her pregnancy cravings, and instead of you just sucking it up and going to get it, you were hiding it underneath things in your cart because you didn't want somebody to think that you were eating like Reese's cups or bakery items or chips because you couldn't be seen with that stuff or you weren't a fitness professional. So all that stuff, I had restricted myself so much, and this was the result of it. And I told myself if all that behavior led to me being like this, and I feel like crap, I have no energy, I'm not able to lift anything anymore, I don't feel fit anymore, then what I was doing was wrong, and I needed to go and fix it. And at this point, like, I saw that picture, and I really audited everything that happened during the pandemic. I took time to critically think. I wrote down notes of everything that happened during the pandemic, all the interactions I had with the gym owner. And how my process went with my coaching internship and how I was kind of almost forgotten about during that time. And I just went up to him one day after, like, shortly after this picture. I think I had taken that picture on a Saturday, and come that Monday, 2 days later, I just decided to talk to him after a CrossFit class. Waited till nobody was in the gym, and the first step to my eating disorder recovery was leaving that gym. And how I did it is I talked to him. I didn't make it confrontational. I didn't make it where I came at him and attacked him for anything. I told him how I felt. I told him I had to end my membership effective immediately. I wasn't going to ride out till the end of the month when I could. I was leaving. He asked me what I was going to do to continue my workouts. I said, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. And I left. I left for a while. I left CrossFit because of that. So I spent a good year, almost year and a half, where I didn't do CrossFit in a CrossFit gym. I ended up like going towards my eating disorder recovery, finding a new gym to work at. My first long term real job in the gym space. I worked at some like small business gym that didn't do CrossFit at all, and I worked my way up to the head personal trainer at that gym. And there's a whole different story how I left there, which has nothing to do with the mental health thing, so I'll leave it out for now. But as all that was happening, I was slowly recovering myself from my eating disorder. And it really just began, honestly, with not putting any morality on my food choices. It was really more, your goal is you need to gain your weight back, and you need to do it while prioritizing some quality. So I didn't restrict myself. I had chicken if I wanted chicken. I had steak if I wanted steak. I had ground beef if I wanted beef. If I wanted turkey, I was having turkey. Pork, you name it. I was going to have what I was going to have. I was going to have what I knew needed to fuel my body. The only ground rules was that I was going to prioritize quality. I wasn't going to put morality on food, and I was going to eat enough calories to thrive, so that way I could get myself out of this hole that I created.
Yeah,
And it
I
was really
really
fun.
like, you know, just a real quick, some of those, you looking at those changes. And I love that you said that you audited kind of what your life looked like, what you had become, what kind of led to that. You looked at, where you were, where you ended up, and then those changes you needed to make to be in a better spot, to be able to be a better you, be healthier, work on those things. And it sounds like it wasn't a easy process, or it was sounded like a long process, rebuilding that relationship with food, changing gyms, even walking away from CrossFit a little bit for some time. And I think that's so important and so powerful to show, like, sometimes we have to make those difficult choices, or those hard decisions to be in a better spot for ourselves mentally, physically. And then that way we can be better for the people around us, and we can be the best, spouse. We can be the best dad. We can be the best co-worker, boss, and, whatever it may be. And so I love that part of it, of just, you kind of walking us through those steps you took and what that looked like specifically for your, recovery in those different things.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely was no walk in the park. It's not like I'm not going to pretend like it's a movie, because if it was a movie, I would have solved all this in like 90 minutes, right? Like, no. It took me about a year to get back from the 167 that I had gotten to 190 pounds. And I even put on a little more after that, which I was fine with, and I ended up cutting it down. But it took me about a year to reverse all that. And when I finally reversed all that, all my fitness came back. All my fitness came back, my lifts came back, my ability to perform at a CrossFit level kind of came back. Everything started to fall into place, and once I was at the tail end of healing was when I finally was able to get back into the coaching space, and I gratefully found another CrossFit gym, which I coach at now, that I was taken into, acclimated into, and now I'm coaching full time at a CrossFit gym. So things worked out the way they needed to, and I'm really grateful everything kind of happened the way it happened, because if it wasn't for the pandemic, as messed up as this sounds, I would probably still be at that first CrossFit gym. that I was originally at. Maybe not finding my own voice or finding my own way to critically think or having a different view on the world that I have now, because I had an entirely different view on the world pre all this than I do now. All this taught me that I needed to be better at thinking for myself, doing what I feel is right, not because somebody else thinks it's the right thing to do, but because this is what I believe is the right thing to do. Finding my own truth, finding my own voice. And as I've learned to kind of do all those things and not really give regard to what people think about me, my life has gotten so much better. The only people that I truly care about, like when it comes to their opinion about me, is my wife, my kids, any family member that's pretty much close to me, and anybody that pays to work with me. So if you actually pay directly to work with me, whether it's personal training, nutrition, online coaching, your opinion is value to mine, right? But if you're not paying me, you're just some random person that has your own opinion on the world, right? You can have your own opinion about me. There's some people that think I'm the best human being in the world. I'm kind, I'm sweethearted, and then there's people, because I'm very strong, blunt, direct. There's people that think I'm probably the biggest asshole on the planet, right? Like I can't control I can't control what people think about me, right? I can only control my action, my reactions, and my response to how people view me and how I choose to take action. So once I realized I'm only in control of what I'm in control of, and I'm not in control of what other people think of me, it helped me kind of reframe and reprioritize how to go about how I just interacted on a daily basis and the actions that I took.
Yeah, I mean that was really well put, and I love that you can share that you've gotten to that space, and even looking back and saying, yeah, I went through some of these hard times, but I can use these and realize like maybe they set me up to be a better human, right? I know I look at my past experiences with addiction and drugs and everything I went through, and it's weird to say like I'm glad I went through that. I don't know if that's like the right framing of words to use. But I don't feel like I would have the life I have today if I didn't suffer, if I didn't go into those dark moments, if I didn't have to look at myself or life or everything around me in a whole different perspective. And that's given me what I have today, which I'm really grateful for. And it sounds like you are as well. And so just like, what do you, I know you said you still do, you're doing CrossFit right now. And I know I saw your Instagram page, and that's what stood out to me about your journey, your message, and some of those things you were putting out there. So what is that message that you're kind of putting out there through your Instagram page, and what does that look like, or what is your purpose, for lack of a better word, behind that? And just maybe share a little bit about that.
So right now, I definitely speak a message of health, right? Health is definitely my main priority, and I want to help as many people on my platform find ways to get healthier, whether it's improving their movement, improving their nutrition, or their lifestyle habits. That's always been a priority of mine because 70% of our country is overweight or obese. So many people are dying from chronic illness, and that's undeniable, no matter what your view is on all that, because a lot of people have a skewed view on health because of just the way the media is, right? That's just undeniable truths. The nation is very unhealthy, but there's reasons, in my opinion, for that. It's partially because we have a poor education system from our leaders. This like really outdated stuff that's just not really helpful, poor information. And on the other hand of it, there's also a abundance of just sleazy people that want to grab money from you, and they don't actually care about your health, but they make it sound like they care about your health, and they confuse the hell out of people. And then because those people are confused, a lot of people are getting into eating disorders and disordered behavior, which leads to the poor mental health issues that I experience. So I don't stand for any of that, right? Like I want to be the change that I wish to see in the world. So just educating people the right way about being healthy without having to put anybody or anything else down in the process, just educating other people. But also on another turn of that, because now I have two kids, I have my daughter and I have my son, and I've had to learn how to adjust and get really fit in less than an hour a day. Like I do CrossFit, but I don't ever go to class. Like I don't ever go to CrossFit class because I'm coaching classes all the time, and I have online clients, and I have nutrition and personal training clients, and I got to run and go pick up my kids all the time and be a husband. Sometimes all I have is 30 to 40 minutes. So I got to find a way to squeeze that workout in 30 to 40 minutes, or something that I have to make for myself all entirely using the CrossFit methodology, but just kind of making it my own thing, right? And that's where I kind of evolved into wanting to help busy parents, because I acknowledge that's a very big problem. Um, it's a very big problem. There's a lot of parents out there that don't pursue a healthy lifestyle because they don't have the time. Maybe they're working a full-time job, or they're working two jobs to pay their bills because the economy is just really rough right now, and some people have to work two jobs, or they have multiple kids and they're just exhausted. I want to continually teach people, especially busy people out there, whether they're parents or not, like, there's ways to live a healthy lifestyle on limited time. It's about working smarter and not harder. And sometimes that means you have to get rid of that identity that you need to do multiple hours a day of fitness to be healthy, or you need to only eat chicken and rice or do whatever, right? Like you got to be smart about your journey and find the way that's convenient and best for you to achieve that end goal. Because at the end of the day, there's 20 different ways to get to the same destination. There could be like 20, 30 different ways to get to the same destination, but we don't all like to take the same route, right? We all have our preferred way that is going to get us there the most efficiently and the easiest. We just have to find what that way is for us. So that way we can achieve what we want in life. And it's not the sexy answer, right? And unfortunately, social media rewards the sexy answer, the thing that maybe is unrealistic at times or is very gimmicky or catchy. But I know at the end of the day, like I could easily I could easily rack up hundreds of thousands and millions of followers, like putting out that wrong message and misleading people, but I want to do it the right way. So that's why I do the unsexy answers, but I'm very truthful about it, and I just try to help people find the real, legit, truthful way to go about their journey.
Yeah, and one thing I really like that you said in that was the 20, or there can be 20 or 30 ways to one destination. And I think, sometimes everybody looks for that, oh, this is the way to get here, and this is the one way to do it, and you do this, you're successful. And I believe that we can get to the same place, but it's about what's going to work for me and what's going to work for you. Our journey through mental health, and just hearing your story now, I can hear some different similarities. Although our pasts were different and the things we dealt with were different, we're ending up in a place where we're happier. Where I can look at myself and say I'm a happier person. I'm working towards what I want to work towards. And it really sounds like you can as well. And those different paths are so important. So I love that you preach that adaptability, and that you talk about that adaptability in getting to where you want to go. And you're not saying this is the one way to do it. It's about finding what's going to work for you and how do you get there. And I think that's what's so important at times in life. So, I'm going to link your stuff in the description of this video. So anybody who wants to go check Brandon out, go click on the link and check him out and see what he's doing, and, join in, follow him, and see if he can help you out, any fitness or, whatever it is that you're looking for in his field. And then, so as we're getting close now to wrapping up, Brandon, I just want to ask you got any, last words, final message that you wanna put out to people listening to this and listening to your experience and your story today.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just going to put it out here, whether you're a male or female, couple things with your mental health journey. First and foremost, don't ever be afraid to ask for help. I was very lucky in my journey. I didn't ask for help and I somehow survived, but that's not the case for most people. Most of you struggling that are ready to just end it all, you're probably not telling anybody for a reason, right? And you should tell somebody because you deserve to live. Whatever reason you think you don't deserve to live for or live a good quality of life for, it's all in your head. And I'm saying that in the most helpful way. Like, ask for help because there are people that care. There are people that care a lot more than you think they do. You just have to be willing to be transparent with people. A lot of people that love you and care about you would rather talk to you about your issue that's going on than have to attend your funeral. So that's the big thing, right? And if you ever want to talk to somebody about it, don't be afraid to reach out, message me, share your story a little bit. I have a few clients of mine right now that struggle with mental health stuff, and I'm grateful that I've connected with some of the clients I've had that have the mental health issues because me and those clients have helped each other out as a result. So transparency, don't be afraid to share your story. I like today, like I was sharing with some members at the gym about like how I was going to be hopping onto this and doing this interview and stuff and talking about it. And it's just cool. Like there were so many people in that class that had no idea I used to struggle with mental health issues. So just being transparent and sharing things, sometimes letting your guard down, people get to know you and trust you a little more, and that means tenfold, right? Actually, one of the members of the class actually went up to me afterwards and told me like, "Hey, I'm a man, and I struggled with that stuff as well, and I had struggled with suicidal thoughts." And we ended up talking about it for a little bit and developing a closer connection as a result of that, one that we didn't have before. So, you know, people care a lot more than you think they do. Just be transparent, open up as much as you're willing to, of course, but definitely don't think that nobody wants to help you because that's so wrong. People will want to help you. You just have to ask and let people know there's a problem.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. And vulnerability is such a powerful thing that you just talked about. When you're transparent, you're open. People hear stuff they can relate to. People hear stuff that empowers them. People hear stuff that inspires them and gives them hope. And that's why, I'm so grateful that you were able to join us today and share your story. And, again, everybody watching, go check Brandon out. Go give him a follow, reach out, like he said, if you're looking for any of those, help or support in any of those things that he is offering. So thank you again, Brandon. Appreciate your time, man. Thank you for being here and joining us. And thank you everybody for listening and sharing Brandon's experience with us today as well. So this has been Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.